Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GLORIO Chat, the best anime podcast on the internet. Thank you guys for letting me back on the show.
Consider yourself on probation.
Yes, I have
wire the money to my account tomorrow.
I have quelled the insurrection, and I'm back in my seat as Supreme Emperor of GLORIO. But yes, thank you all. Thank you all for covering last time.
I'm still allowed to be here for some reason.
Yeah, well, it's it's complicated, but yeah. Anyway,
you're the
spring is here.
You're the Starscream to Gel's Megatron.
Is that how it is?
Yes.
All right.
Well, spring is here. Love is in the air, or so anime would have me believe. With all the new shows I've been watching, they seem to all have some kind of romantic element to them. A lot of himbos and wife guys this season. It feels like. I don't know about you. I don't know what you guys have all been watching, but that seems to be what I've been running into. But yeah, we're also in the awkward position of we didn't have that opportunity to wrap up last season as well, so we knew a little bit of both for this episode as seasons continue to not mean anything anymore. But yeah, we got a lot to talk about, and let's start by just introducing everybody. I'm Gel. I'm joined by Arrow.
I'm still here. I'm not dead yet.
Yes, still with us. We're joined by G.
We've all just climbed out of the anime mines. Our faces are still sweaty and dusty from all the mining we've been doing, trying to find the diamonds in the rough for you, but damn, I don't know. I just came out of that mine, and all I can say is, I don't know, folks. There seem to be a lot of gay women down there. That seems to be that seems to be the thing.
Hell yeah. Anyway, yes, that's we'll get into that for sure. And we are joined by Zig.
Yes, since we're recording this on Easter Sunday, I think that it's only appropriate that we pay tribute to those who died on the cross for us, like Ultraman, every Super Sentai team, Gabumon, Sailor Moon, all of those noble souls.
I was thinking if this is a time to celebrate the return of our Lord and Savior, BIRDIE WING is back.
Yeah, but nobody's tied to a cross in BIRDIE WING yet.
Not yet.
No.
We're not ruling that out.
Tied to a golf flag.
Yes.
We are not ruling that out. Oh, I can't wait to talk about BIRDIE WING, but before we get to the new things happening, we do need to wrap up the winter season, or what was left of it by the time it ended.
We're here to round up the survivors.
Yeah, I just want to start by saying, an RIP to NieR Automata, which again got delayed indefinitely. I don't believe any time has been announced for it to be finished. So
they're just trying to recreate the experience of starting the game 4 or 5 different times. The closest you can get in a TV format.
Yeah, well, at least they got the fishing puppet show ending in before they shut it down. So if they never come back, we'll always have that.
Look, man, Yoko Taro's too busy trying to kill Sega.
Oh, right.
Oh, right, yeah. That's a whole nother story we can't get into. But, yes, also killed by COVID delays was BOFURI. They have announced the final 2 episodes will be airing. One of them was supposed to be this weekend, but it got delayed again, so not a good sign, but at least they're trying. But I will say that show was looking real rough at the end. Like, I don't know. It's unfortunate because, like, even if they could get the episodes out, there was a lot of montages over insert songs. Let's put it that way.
Ooh, that's never a good sign.
Last couple episodes. So, rest in peace, both of those shows. If they ever come back, maybe we'll talk about them again. Certainly NieR, but we'll see. Other shows that ended, Tomo-chan ended, right? Tomo-chan is a girl?
Yes, Tomo-chan
was Tomo-chan still a girl by the end of the show?
Yes.
Okay.
She is
confirmed.
I am checking my notes here. Carry the 2, Yes, confirmed. Tomo-chan is still a girl as of the 13th and final episode of the series.
Dang.
Did they hook up?
Yeah, they did, and that's the important thing, right?
Hooray.
Like that's So here's the thing where I think broadly, I come away from Tomo-chan positive, but there is definitely a strained element of like, you didn't have to make it this hard to get here. Because, so, the 12th and penultimate episode is where the actual confession happens, right? And as far as anime romance confessions go, I actually rather like it, right? Because it kind of does the, to us, like, decrepit, cynical old men, this doesn't really seem like, that big of a deal, but in the context of a teenage relationship, I totally get it, is the whole, like, okay, so we're both, like, 99% sure that we like each other romantically. What is that going to do to our friendship, right? Like, these two, best buddies who, are, like, having sleepovers, playing video games, and, joshing around and, all that stuff, right? And it's like, but once we become boyfriend and girlfriend, isn't that all gonna change? Like, aren't we gonna have to, like, hold hands and go to brunches together or some shit? And I mean, whatever. At the end, the realization is no, nothing has to change, right? Like, if the form of the relationship that you guys have is already what you believe to be the best form of it, then why change it other than just now you have acknowledged each other's romantic feelings, right? And so in that aspect, I actually rather like how it wraps up. It's like, oh, okay, yeah. Like, I mean, kind of by the numbers, but still, I was like, I'm glad it went this way, right? Because, like, the whole, like, kind of original plot line of Tomo-chan, right, is the whole, like, oh, Tomo thinks that, like, she has to act more feminine, right, to, like, attract Junichiro's attention, right? And so to have the confession at the end basically boil down to, like, them saying, no, I like you because of exactly who you are, and I don't want that to change. I don't want anything we do to change. Like, this, as we already have it, is perfect, is a, relatively nice message overall, if again, a little by the book.
Right.
There's, like, kind of a good subplot of, like, Gundo, the dour one, has, like, a pretty good, like, she is the snarky shit talker, right? And I feel like often in these types of media, you kind of expect them to be unassailable, but she has a pretty good moment towards the end where she's like, oh fuck, I'm the one who originally told Tomo at the beginning of this anime that she should try acting more feminine. This is basically all my fault. I fucked this up. Like, yeah. Like, these two probably would have been going out by episode 3 had I not said that. And, in the end, it's played for slight drama, but of course, obviously Tomo forgives her in the end, but, Tomo's like, wait, I guess you did say that, right? But, I could still appreciate the show having a little bit of that self-awareness of, like, yeah, actually, people's words have meaning, like, yeah. Even a thing you say offhand, like, have you tried acting more feminine, can have long-term consequences on a person's behavior. So, and again, in that regard, high marks. Good job, Tomo-chan. Where it all kind of falls apart is, like, that's all the penultimate episode.
Oh, yes.
Then the last episode actually happens, and this is one of the most, like, oh shit, right, you got to adapt the source material, huh?
Oh.
And the last episode is, oh, we actually can't go out because Tomo's dad, Heihachi Mishima, will approve of the relationship unless Junichiro can defeat him in a karate match. And it's like, why?
Yeah.
Like, and they take it seriously. This is the problem, right? Like,
it's not a joke.
It's the whole episode. It is legitimately the meat of the last episode is Junichiro having to summon the willpower to defeat the leader of the Mishima Zaibatsu in unarmed combat to win the affections of Tomo.
Okay, one important question. does the episode end with somebody being thrown into a volcano?
Unfortunately, he is not actually Heihachi Mishima. He just has the hair. But
what's the point?
He actually kind of looks more like what's that dude from King of Fighters? Goro? Well, anyways, he's like a big, like, meaty dude in a karate gi. But he's got like the two pointed like tips on top of his hair.
Yeah, it's a very, very unique hairstyle,
Yeah. And they played for real. Like, they played seriously. And I'm like, really, dude? You had your big, like, emotionally cathartic confession last week, and now we're just back to, like, this type of dipshittery? Like,
yeah.
I don't know, man. Look, I love me a good fight, but this is not the show's specialty. It really felt kind of unnecessary, and it's a weird choice to make it the last episode. But, I don't know. Long story short, he wins the match and gets their approval, and they date.
Is it like he wins for reals, or is it like the father realizes, I do approve of these, I just had to save face by maintaining the facade of...
It's the latter. It's the latter.
Okay,
I mean, like, Tomo's mom immediately approves of the relationship. She's like, finally, I'm so happy for you two. And it's all... Tomo Senior here, who's like, you must defeat me in armed combat. And yes, it is very much a thing of, like, basically halfway through the fight, he's like, damn, they really do love each other. I'm such a fucking asshole for demanding this. As he is, beating the shit out of this, 17-year-old boy. He's like, damn, did I make a mistake to demand this?
That sounds like it could be a good time. Like
I'm beating the shit out of this kid.
Well, at least they made it to the finish line, right?
They did.
That's something you don't always get.
I think the show has, despite it, being, again, despite Tomo herself being, like, made in a lab to appeal to me, I think Tomo-chan hit the absolute limit of what the show can be. Like, it ended a little bit past my patience for the show, I guess is how I'd put it, right? Like, I'm glad it still got to the point it did, but if they announced Tomo-chan season 2, I don't think I'm gonna be racing out there to watch it.
Nowhere left to go with that one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's could have been worse.
Yeah.
Tomo-chan is a girl. It could have been worse.
Glowing endorsement. All right. Well, let's move along and talk about the Fire Hunter, which I feel like...
I don't have much to say about the Fire Hunter at this point.
Okay. So this is properly over, right? Like, there's
going to be a season 2. I didn't even watch the last episode or two, I don't think, because I don't know. It just was no longer holding my interest. And
so, I will say that... Oh, sorry, I go on.
Just the idea that it's like, it's one thing to, there's 2 episodes left, I gotta watch those, but like the announcement of a season 2 it was like the confirmation to me that, like, there's that much more story left, nothing's going to get wrapped up in those last 2 episodes. Like, none of the questions that I still cared about, like, nominally cared about to have answered, are probably going to be answered in those 2 episodes, and the show's production is still, a roiling mass on the floor, and so it's just, I didn't feel a need to even wrap up the first season.
That sounds like me in High Card, but yes.
I mean, it's unfortunate when you have a show that, like, if nothing else, based on the way you guys talked about it, at least had some interesting world building. It is always unfortunate to just kind of see it uncoil like that at the end, right?
Yeah. Zig, what were you going to say?
I think the thing that watching the last couple of episodes reminded me is that, this show was written by Mamoru Oshii, which was something
how much?
So, like, it's the thing I would say about, like, the back half of the Fire Hunter is that it's kind of sloppy. I think that there's still some interesting ideas there. There's still some, like, strong concepts, but the writing is just so all over the place. There's no like strong through line of plot. It feels undisciplined, it feels sprawling all over the shop, and like a bag of ideas that can't kind of like straighten up and get in shape. And like for better or worse, that kind of encapsulates like the bad side of Oshi's writing, right? Like it kind of just sort of dwells and ponders on things without necessarily whipping them into the shape of a narrative.
The unfortunate, like, the sort of thing people often say about Oshii, right, is like, at his best, right, there are very few directors like him, but I think at his worst, like, to call some of his his lesser works meandering would almost be too nice. Like, there's often an aimlessness to the way he writes sometimes, if there aren't enough guardrails.
And I think here, and I don't think he's solely to blame, I think the material, having not read the novels, but it certainly seems like the material is kind of in a rut a little, but the net combination is just like, people go places and do things, but you're not entirely sure why or like what the things they are doing are adding to the bigger picture, and it just all feels very aimless, and that's disappointing, because like I said, I still think the world is interesting. I still think that there's a lot of potential there, but it feels it needed somebody to come in and like tighten the script considerably at the very least, And as Iro said, the production continues to be a disaster. It's rough to look at. It's actively unpleasant to look at a lot of the time. And whenever there's a scene which requires action, you would probably be better off like flipping the corner of a book instead or something like that. You'd get more frames that way.
Ouch. Oh, well, that is disappointing, as G was saying. And, kind of odd that I guess it's going another season. I'm assuming that was probably planned ahead of time or whatever, but
I assume so. Also, I can only
first one. Yeah,
I can only assume that this season probably cost like half a pack of cigarettes and like a £5 note to make, so it's no big deal to make a second one. So we'll have to see. Like, I'll probably have a gander at where they pick up for the second one, but my enthusiasm is severely tempered.
It's going to take a lot to win you back at this point, right? Yeah. All right.
Well, is it time for the disappointment hour then?
Yeah, we're just going to keep.
Yeah.
We're just going to keep plowing through these.
Yeah.
Tell us, Joe. Tell us the story.
My parting words. My parting words for Buddy Daddies.
Yes.
So as you know, we got into the serious parts with our family on the run from Ray, the dark-haired guy, his dad,
right, the
who has a hit out
conglomerate.
Yes, who runs the assassin conglomerate, the super assassin family, and he's got a hit out for the other guy, Kazuki, and the kid, because he wants his son to come back and take over the family, like he's destined to do. It's in his blood, all that. There's a lot of speeches to that effect. And so I'm gonna back up a little bit. If you guys recall, many episodes ago, I told you there was an episode where the blonde guy Kazuki meets Miri's mother,
right?
And isn't she
is terrible?
Want her child back?
Yeah, so she's terrible and like explicitly establishes that she doesn't want the kid back. And it feels like that episode was to set up that there's no like moral obligation for them to give this child back to their mother at any point. They're free to take her as their parent.
Man, that's
her parents.
Okay.
That's what that episode felt like, right? So guess what they do in the final arc of Buddy Daddies?
What do they do, Jell?
It's time for the irredeemable mom redemption arc.
Oh. So that they can say now, so that we can do a now we must go with the kid.
So,
or like pull that fake
So here's
out.
what happens. First of all, let me just say, if I haven't said it recently, I generally hate redemption arcs. They're so rarely done. Like,
it's a difficult thing to do well.
Especially
you heard it here, folks, on Easter Sunday. Hates redemption.
Yes, you hear
forgiveness.
I feel like especially with like the evil parent thing, like because
But no,
I feel
I
like that's
agree,
where
yes.
maybe it comes up the most.
Well,
And
I
it's
mean,
so-
look, like also like I think just like context-wise, like the culture of filial piety is so strong in Japan and Asia in general that like it often feels unearned, right?
Right, I can't give up on him because he's my dad. Which there's some like dad or mom or whatever. There's some it can be more complicated than that. But even so, like it's so hard to do and rarely pulled off correctly. And this is one of those situations where it is not pulled off correctly. So here's what happens: the handler guy who has been tasked with offing Kazuki and the kid, he's kind of a hard ass, but he doesn't want to literally murder a child, right? So he's like, okay, if I get her mother, if I can get her to go back to her mother, and she's out of the picture, then maybe the other dude will back off because then it's not going to affect his son anymore, right? So he secretly contacts the mother, who then comes back, and she's like, and we don't know this at first. She just comes back and she's like, I've changed. She's like, dressed in nice clothes now. She's like talking all, like proper and nice, and I regret everything I've done, and I know you guys are in a dangerous line of work, and I think it's time for me to take my daughter back. And this is so abrupt that I was 100% certain this was like a trap, like maybe the dad got to her and was like paying her off to like set up this trap or something.
The proof that the final proof that they have no obligation to give her back the child is that she would be willing to throw her child away for money.
Yes, like that was like the logical conclusion to that storyline based on what we had seen previously. So like basically there's no reason to believe her when she says all that, right?
Right.
And even the buddy daddies are skeptical at this point, but they're also like, she is kind of right with the situation. Maybe she would be better off. And it turns out it's not a trap. She just changed her mind. There's no time spent on why. No reason given. Like it just, well, I love my daughter now. I changed. That's it. And so they give the daughter back, but of course it ends up not being enough. And there's a big dramatic scene where the mother dies because they're trying to get because they go to kill them anyway. They send the big bad evil assassin guy, the guy that writes down everybody's last words. And it's just so bad. Like there's no reason for any of it. You don't feel anything about it, and it's just like I was done at that point. And so the mom dies, and now they're really stuck, and they have to like figure out some way to get out of their situation. And they finally do like one more assault on the assassin complex, where Ray goes up to his dad, and he's basically, his resolution is he shoots himself in the shoulder so that he's not a good assassin anymore.
Of course.
And he's like, well, I'm useless to you now. See you later, Dad. And that's it. They go off to some like in the middle of they open a cafe in the middle of nowhere and start the show that I wanted all along.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Where it's just the two buddy daddies running a cafe, and they even do a little time skip to where Miri's it's her first day of high school, and she's saying goodbye to her buddy daddies.
High school.
Her dad, and they throw in a little one more no homo because the Kazuki is apparently still a womanizer. It's not, fellas, is it gay to have a male life partner that you raise a child with?
We definitely keep separate beds. We sleep in separate beds, definitely, guys.
They had to throw that in there, and just overall, we're going to talk about High Card next, and I feel like there's kind of similar trajectories
Parallels.
that these shows went on. And Buddy Daddy pisses me off a lot more because I did enjoy portions of the show, and it's and even though I didn't like the choices they made, at least it's still like very well made. It's very competently made.
I mean, it seems like the grand problem with Buddy Daddies in the end, right, is like it's a thing I feel like we say a lot about certain anime originals, right? Of like, here you go, a grade A premise handed on a silver platter, just don't fuck it up.
Yep.
And then they proceed to fuck it up.
It's like you write the idea down on a napkin, the 1-sentence pitch, and it sounds great. And then when it comes time to actually make the show, you're like, oh, how do we make this?
Right.
How do we make this show happen?
Yeah.
It's like they don't have a plan, and they just kind of like, go with the flow on it, and then you get stuff like this. But
I've not been watching the show, obviously, but like the things you've just said about the last episode, particularly the like we brought back the mom, redeemed her, and then killed her. Just like it seems to me a very much a kind of a have cake and eat it as well thing. It's that like we can't possibly leave the impression that the mother was bad and hated her child, but also we want a happy ending, so we're going.
She still has to pay. She still has to pay the price. Great.
No, it's not even that though. It's just she is an obstacle in the way of achieving our perfect ending. So we brought her back just to reassure her that actually, kids, your parents are good. Really, they are. And then we removed her from the plot.
She's just bad from the plot, though. Yeah. So that's just like common or garden bad writing. There. In general, the writing is awful. Like I think you guys saw some of the screenshots I posted of some of the dialogue.
It's pretty bad.
I'm looking at the one where when he's confronting his father, and his father says, "You're going to follow through on that false relationship, bearing the weight of your sin." And I'm like,
"Oh my goodness!"
Because there's context, but there's contexts in which like that'd be hilarious. And
this isn't that kind of show.
Exactly. Yeah.
If this was some like melodramatic, like just anime, like super anime, whatever. Yes, but this is like
they would both have to be in robots for that line.
Exactly. Yeah, you got to be in a robot. You got to be in a robot to say that kind of line, not just a regular dude.
Perhaps a jet plane.
Okay, maybe a jet plane. Yeah.
Why not both at the same time?
Or maybe the robot that turns into a jet plane. Yeah.
Yes.
So anyway, just disappointing. Because there were stretches of that show that were good, and they could have made it work, and they didn't. So
well, speaking of another show that had I wouldn't call it stretches of good, but maybe glimmers of good.
Yes.
Yeah. High Card.
Yeah, so
I feel like we fundamentally disagreed with the creators of the show on the kind of show they should be making.
That's basically all there is to it, right? I mean, we could also bring up it's kind of interesting. There's a bit of a parallel here to Iro, what you said about the Fire Hunter of. By the time we reached the end of High Card, we were definitely going, wait, hold on a second. They're not going to find a satisfying conclusion to any of this. And then they announced Season 2. And it's like, oh, that's why. And then what little air was left in the balloon, escaped at that point.
It's like, you've introduced so many dangling plot threads in, the final third of the show that's like... But the thing is, I don't care about any of them because you haven't the setup's no good, right?
Right. I really didn't like I really didn't like the dramatic turn they took with
it's super hackneyed.
So I didn't finish watching. I think I had 2 episodes left or something. I stopped around the time when they revealed that you can play 3 cards at once.
Yes, the X player, the X card or whatever.
And they had to make is it Chris? They had to make his tragic backstory even more tragic.
Oh, does that mean that you missed the dramatic last-minute twist?
Probably, yeah.
Which dramatic?
Which one?
Being the bit where Chris turns on the rest of the team.
Oh yeah. We were just about to get into that. So yes. So the finale of I guess now what is Season 1 is that Chris. It turns out Chris has secretly been collecting the rest of the 5 playing cards.
Yeah, that much. I saw enough to figure out that he was going to do that. Yes,
okay, yes, and he decides to basically go rogue to play the X hand to save his anime sick sister.
Because the 5 cards are all some type of healing question mark.
I don't think it's necessarily that as well. Maybe it is. Like, I mean, this is the problem, right? Like, so we all talk about how
it's ill-defined, and so it's like, yeah.
But the problem is it's not even ill-defined in the good JoJo way of like, how'd you get that new power? I made it up. It's not even like that. It's like, it's just ill-explained how the cards work, right? But the idea is that, you play multiple of the same, like, card or number, it gets a power boost, right? And so he takes he gets the other 3 5 cards. So he has a full, he's got a what's it called? A 4? Is it just a
4 of a kind?
It's just 4 of a kind. Yeah, I guess he just got a 4 of a kind,
special
right?
name for 4 of a kind.
And he's off to the races. He's absconded with his sister, but it gets into the really hackneyed thing of he has the sister, he has the cards, and he's getting chased by these assassins who are trying to stop him. He does not once ever just be like, should I just activate the healing now? No, it's because he promised his sister.
It has to be done. Yeah. I promised we'd go to the Ferris wheel next time.
Oh, God.
Well, I have to heal her at the top of the Ferris wheel.
Yeah. So, which is just an excuse to have like a, just to have it. It's just an excuse to have a car chase and to give the heroes time to catch up to him. And, long story short, it's all like, the whole deal is like, the quote unquote moral ambiguity in heavy scare quotes here, right?
Yeah,
is like Finn and the rest of High Card. It's like where do your loyalties lie? Does it lie towards High Card, the government like institution, or High Card, your comrades in arms? Right? Like which version of High Card do you owe your loyalties to, right? Like, because the idea of like, to be loyal to one means to have to forsake the other, right? And
we can't use our cards for personal gain,
for some reason.
Yeah, and it's like fucking whatever, right? It's like the most hackneyed like moral ambiguity like thing in the world, because obviously everybody, all the Nakama come together to help out and.
I mean, it doesn't help. Doesn't help that like their bosses have universally been like cold, ignorant assholes this entire time.
Right. So there's really no ambiguity, right? Like it's just like, oh, here's your shitty boss, and then here are your cool coworkers. Well, cool grading on a curve, I guess.
Yes.
But, I mean,
so we've been told.
It's like the flashback sequence where Chris's father is like, "I want to save my dying son," and dude is like, "No." And there's no reason given for it at all.
Right.
Because you can't use your cards for personal gain.
Right, like it at least would have been something if Jotaro, at least that's who the guy's voiced by, and I don't know his real name, so I'm just going to keep calling him Jotaro. It would have been one thing if Jotaro was like doing the like social Darwinist, like if you're giving up your life to save your son, but like you're an agent of High Card, you're like immensely more valuable to me than your son. Like think about the blah blah, whatever. Like even that's not that much more better.
That makes him look like that. Yeah, that makes him look like an asshole, but it gives stakes.
Yes,
right. It's a reason.
But instead, it's literally just like Jotaro literally just looks at the camera and says, "Your kid's gotta die," and it's like. Okay, like,
right?
Sure, dude. And anyways, it all culminates in like a bit that's like legitimately kind of cool, but also too little, too late. Of like, they're in a car chase. They're chasing after Chris, who's like on the Ferris wheel, slowly, going to the top, and the what's his name, Leo.
He makes a big like ramp.
He summons a big ass ramp. Yes, with money. And they drive off the edge, and Finn gets out and pulls off the shot in a million. Right,
because his Neo Nunambu lets him shoot in a straight line. Right, so he just shoots one of the 4 cards out of the X hand, so it goes off with only 3.
Yes. And then it just works.
Yeah.
Like, it turns out Chris...
Okay, yeah.
It's like Chris never needed all 4 cards in the first place. Like...
Well, but you see, she's not. They there's a really ridiculous line when in the denouement where they're talking about his sister, and they're like, "Well, she's not in remission per se, but her life's not in danger anymore." It's just like, what the fuck are you talking about? So, but yeah, it's just like this really half-assed excuse of his plan worked in a way that didn't have to sacrifice his life, and now we can all go back to happy fun times looking for the cards, and all of these other plot threads are hanging around that we haven't addressed and won't until season 2. And I guess the whole point of this season was Finn and Chris are just such good friends. When
that's gotta be
like barely any time to set that up.
If there's one part I would identify as like the weakest attempt of anything they tried was try to make us believe that Chris and Finn are like best bros, and they have this like.
It just doesn't work.
They ate cold beans together once.
Yeah, that they have like this like they have this like unbreakable bond or whatever.
Yeah,
that
it's just so like it's so hollow, like there's no scenes of like genuine affection or like camaraderie between them. It's all just the bad kind of melodrama, the tortured, forced, super artificial stuff. It
definitely feels like the kind of show that or quote unquote understands. It thinks that, oh well, at this point in the plot, the characters have to do and say X, Y, and Z, right? But it's a 13 episode anime, and they did not put any time into exploring the character dynamics you would need to like fulfill to properly execute on that stuff later.
Yeah,
it's like the more I'm thinking about it, I was like, what did they waste their time on? I can hardly even remember anything that happened in this show at this point. Like, it's just like
there were 2 whole episodes that were theoretically focused on Chris and what's his name, Finn, but just the content of those episodes is so forgettable and like underwhelming that like even though they did give time to this relationship, they didn't actually do anything with the time.
Yeah.
Well,
is it ridiculous?
Is it safe to say we're not going to watch season 2 at this point?
It is safe to say I'm not going to watch season 2.
Yeah, it's a shame, but yes, they
pour one out. No, go ahead, Sig.
I was just like they didn't like the show feels like it's torn between being about 3 things at once, and it's not good at any of them as a result.
Yeah.
There's only one thing High Card was good at, and we should all pour one out for all lucky lunchmen.
Yep.
Yeah. Which was like the first 5 minutes of the series, right?
I mean, I think I was saying when we were watching like the last couple episodes, I was like, what happened to Anime Vegas? That was a fun like setting, and then we immediately ditched it for Anime London, right?
Yeah, which like to be clear,
London also okay.
Anime versions of real world cities can sometimes work out great. See Blood Blockade Battlefront and Double Decker, where it's just anime New York City, right? Sometimes that works, but when episode 1 is like, oh, high flying, crazy anime Vegas hijinks.
Yeah, I mean,
the actual answer is that episode 1 is the only good episode of the show, because it's the only one that like has the energy and ascends to the heights of silliness that we.
Our hands are stuck together. Episode was okay.
Yes, that was the other good episode.
Yeah. I mean,
no. Yeah, you know what, Zig? You're right, because by the end, when they got into the anime sick,
that stuff's true.
Little sister,
right. The first half of that episode.
Yes.
Yeah.
The first half of
that episode is like a solid like 2-chapter like one-off JoJo villain, like
yeah.
Right.
Well, let's end our disappointment here with Trigun Stampede.
Oh baby,
the most disappointing of all.
Trigun Stampede.
So this also got some kind of continuation announced, but the details have not
unclear
been...
what exactly.
They just said there will
Unclear
be
at this
more,
point,
right? Yeah.
We don't know if it's a movie or a second season or a I don't know, an app exclusive web novel. We don't know what it is yet. But
announcement that
Pachinko
production on a quote final phase unquote of the series has been greenlit. What does that mean?
Maybe they'll make a manga of it.
And even more confusing because of how Trigun Stampede ends.
Right. So yeah.
You want to go?
The end of the show is basically they confront Knives and do some fighting in the mind's eye stuff and, you know, stop Knives' plan of killing all humans and, you know, shooting out a bunch of new plants everywhere. Right. And, you know, everyone scatters. The July incident has occurred. Vash's bounty is now $60 billion dollars. He's out in the desert somewhere. Meryl gets a call that someone named Millie Thompson is going to join up with her, and we get a card that says, and then instead of an episode number, it says number 0.
Oh, it's always great when you end a show saying, "Oh no, seriously, guys, now the good bit."
So they did the thing. They basically did multiple variations of the thing I suspected, which is that Trigun Stampede is sort of an elaborate retelling, but also a pseudo prequel to Trigun proper, right? Because the July incident is the inciting event of the original Trigun. It is the thing that gives Vash his $60 billion double dollar bounty that makes him the humanoid typhoon.
Right.
But the problem is that they also shove in, you know, the introduction of Wolfwood and his backstory, Vash's final confrontation with Knives, if you expect things to happen like in a logical manner, how could this possibly be the beginning when all of that shit's already happened?
So they tried to make both a prequel and a remake at the same time.
God, that's kind of what it feels like. Yeah,
I mean, I'm not necessarily against that idea because canon is overrated anyway, right? Like, who really cares? Like, the major issue seems to have been that kind of it's not good at doing those things.
Right. No, I mean, okay, look, as the Final Fantasy VII remake defender, I love a reinterpretation.
You say that like none of us have liked Final Fantasy VII remake.
Oh, I don't know. You guys seem pretty down on it every time we talk about it, but I digress. I was open to Trigun trying this, right? Because again, I love the original manga, but I'll say it every time. I academically recognize that simply doing Trigun Brotherhood, it would be like a nearly like David production JoJo-esque undertaking, right? It would be a project that a studio would have to commit to for like the next 5 to 10 years.
The manga's kind of a calamity in multiple ways, you know, like just in terms of being very messy.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think by the end of Maximum, I think it smoothens everything out. But again, it's more. I understand that the length and the complexity, and yeah, to a certain extent, the messiness of the source material would make like a proper 1-to-1 anime adaptation difficult without like, you know, I don't know, angel investor money just coming out of nowhere, right? So I get the point of why Stampede attempts the things it does. It just doesn't do any of it well, man.
So when it's saying there's going to be more, is that just like a joke that now you can go watch the original anime or something?
It's a threat.
There's definitely a post-credits and here's what's going to happen next, which had to be explained to me because I haven't read the manga and it really expects you to know what the hell they're talking about when that stuff happens.
Which again, like, it makes me think that Trigun Stampede is a bad introduction to new viewers, which then begs the question, why did you make it like this in the first place then?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we've been saying all along, is like, who is this for, right? Like,
I mean, I'll tell you who it's for. It's for the 70% of my Twitter timeline who are fascinated with having Knives and Vash bone each other. That's who it's for.
I mean, even to that extent, I don't think the Vash and Knives stuff is handled particularly well in this interpretation of Trigun. I
who have less context thought like there were bits of it that I thought that I liked, but then fair. As a whole, it's way too rushed, right?
Yeah.
And I think the Battle in the Mind's Eye stuff is kind of hackneyed. What I liked is probably more specifically when Knives is at the very, very end of that battle. Yes. Spoilers. At the very end of that battle, Knives is well, what's your fucking alternative then for my master plan? You're so hell in stopping me. To what end? And Vash is just I'll come up with something later. Basically, and Knives is are you kidding me?
Right,
that's the best you have. Fine, I'll just vaporize myself on your angel arm because I can't believe this bullshit.
Right, and you know what that is? You are right, Eero. I think I should have given more credit. I think that there are aspects of the Vash and Knives relationship that are handled well, right? Because yes, the final confrontation is basically Vash unlocks his angel arm, and him and Knives have this kind of ridiculous DBZ fight through the city.
Right. They're sort of... Because, the angel arm in this is powered by the gate to the higher dimension that Knives wants to use to influence reality.
Right. Yeah.
And so they're wrestling over it. Yeah.
And there is an aspect that is done well, which is that, for all of Knives' sins, his genocidal aims for the human race, he truly loves his brother. He truly loves Vash, and when and in many ways, right, Knives has had this thought in his head rent free for centuries, or at least a century, right? What am I to do for the plants? What am I supposed to do to save my people? And it's very much that contrast. I mean, it is the intentional ideological divide between them, right? What does Vash have to offer? Against Vash's against Knives' machinations, his plans, his ambitions, what does Vash have to offer an alternative? And the reality is all Vash has to offer is hope.
Right.
Is just his idealism that one day mankind can be better. And Knives doesn't really have a good answer to that because he's really, that's it.
Yeah.
Right.
But then we also arrive at this weird thing of so Knives basically throws himself on Vash's proverbial sword to become Vash's first technical kill, right? And this is weird because then the episode 0 stuff happens, and it's but...
I was going to say, if you're ending a show with the July incident, doesn't that mean you end with the death of 100,000 people or something like that?
And they do commit to that, yes. So I was worried that they were going to do the whole, everybody conveniently evacuated July in time. But no, they do say that Knives was his first kill. The rest of the city of July is his second through 100,000th kill. And... So they have committed to that aspect.
Yes, it's just from what you've told me, the stuff they were hinting at in the post-credit stuff, where the Earth fleet has come answering the distress signal. From what you told me, that entire plot line relies very heavily on Knives
being present
there, and so any follow-up is where are you going with this?
It's weird.
You can bring him back. It's a crazy Gonzo sci-fi universe. He's got clones. He's got bodies.
The only explanation is that Knives will just be revealed to be still alive. That's really all you can do. And it's I don't mind that.
Double Vash.
But it's then then why have all the drama about their final fight in the first place? Then
I mean, I can't remember if I said this when we did the first look and stuff like that. But honestly. I always thought Knives was one of the less interesting parts of Trigun, and the idea that they devoted an entire series to like the Vash Knives things is kind of off-putting to me, because
I mean,
I think that the real Trigun is like all the fucking weirdos we meet along the way, right? It's
Right.
kind of like
I mean,
JoJo in that regard.
yeah, it's the gung ho guns, it's the bondage freaks that
Yeah.
are all like determined to prove Vash's ideology incorrect through their own twisted means. I mean, Legato just kind of falls off the map, you know? Like Legato
Right.
Blue Summers.
Well, it's like,
Yeah,
if you ask me who the big villain of Trigun is, I'm probably going to say Legato, honestly.
He
Right.
does not show up after like in the last
Right.
40 episodes.
As far as we know, he
basically.
just left.
Yeah,
I mean, I think what didn't I say at the end of the last episode? I was like, if their follow up for this is that like Legato takes upon himself the mantle of Millions Knives or something, like
right.
as the true believer, like that's the way I see them trying to do it if they want Knives to stay dead.
Right. It would certainly be an interesting angle. I mean, it's like obviously their powers are different, so you'd have to find some way to like work around that. But
Right.
I definitely think that, like, yeah, I think killing Knives prematurely to elevate Legato into, I mean, this then makes Legato sort of the Poochie of Trigun, right? The true believer who inherits the will of the villain. And I'll say this, in a better executed version of Trigun, that would actually be a really exciting plot point. Like, I would actually be legitimately super into that. But the version of Trigun Stampede we've been given, I just don't have a lot of faith. And the last thing I'll say for it, just because I want to, wrap this up, is I also, we're talking about it being a prequel, but also a remake. And as a result, I find all of its cute nods to the original to be kind of off-putting to me. Like, again, in the last 5 minutes of the final episode, name drop Millie Thompson. During the final fight,
just put Millie in it.
Yeah, right. Like, why be like, ha ha ha? Millie will show up next time. It's like, just put the tall
it was
lady
super
in the
important.
show.
It was super important. We have boring mustache guy for this show.
Yeah, like during the final fight with Knives, when Vash powers up his angel arm, his hair gets slicked up to look like the original Vash's hair.
Right.
And it's
I
just
did see shots of that program.
It's like, so you know what people want, and you're, I don't know.
Right.
I've never been a fan of that like cute winking at the camera style.
I mean, especially and this isn't an anime problem. It's a media problem. But like in the past decade or so, it's just become absolutely insufferable because everything does it all the time, right?
Exactly.
Like, everything is a reference to something. Everything is a sequel.
Right. I mean, at risk of talking about something utterly tangential to Trigun, like we were talking about this with like Resident Evil 4 remake, right? Where it will just not have some of the like goofy stuff from the original,
right.
But then the achievement you get for beating that chapter is a reference to the wacky thing from the original,
right? Like the
just,
name of the achievement,
thus showing that they know that you like that stuff.
Yeah, it's like, oh, the achievement's called The Big Cheese, but the line's not in the game itself, and it's like, so people like that stuff, but you don't think it's worth putting into the work anymore. Like, it's fine as a cute reference, but we've moved past such things, and it's like, I don't know, it doesn't leave a good taste in the mouth, I guess, is all I can really say. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Like I mean, either acknowledge that stuff or just don't and do your own thing. Like, entirely separate.
It's the flip side of doing a reference thing, right? Like, in an ideal world, it is, hey, look, we remember the thing you remember, but in like when the current thing is not that great, it's, hey, remember the thing that you like that was so much better than this. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't help either, right? Yeah, I mean, if the thing is good and they put in like, one little wink, okay, fine. But then when it's like, hey, we could have done this all along, folks, it would have been better.
A shame.
Well, yeah, it's a shame. I mean, it felt like a very like, it was such a well-made, ambitious type project, right? And just for what? I mean, I know there are the people that did like it, but I feel like mostly is either pissing off people who like the original or people like me that didn't know anything, were just completely confused and turned off by it.
Yeah, I mean, again, I just don't think it's that great of an introduction to Trigun. So
yeah. All right, enough of last season. I can't hold back anymore. We got to get into the new season, and we got to talk about the most important event of, possibly the decade, all time. I don't know, whatever. But Birdie Wing Golf Girl story is back.
It's
Speaking
back,
about
baby.
the resurrection of an icon.
Yes, like I said before. Yes, but yeah, still the greatest television program of all time.
The audacity of this show to just kick up an episode 14 as if no time has passed at all. I was telling Iro,
that's what I want. That's what I want.
I looked at the dates from when we last watched Birdie Wing. It was like the end of June of last year. It's been nearly 10 months.
Yeah, it's been almost a year. Yeah. Yep. And
it's just like, yep, we're back in the doubles tournament.
Right, the reminder that they stopped in the middle of some tournament.
Yeah, they're like literally on the golf course still, right? Like, yeah.
Just like, right.
I mean, they even kept the opening the same, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We started up the show again.
Like, they quite literally put that show on a shelf for a year. Let it collect dust.
So
somebody at Sunrise was like, "Oh, word, this thing's still here."
We were talking about earlier, shows that have an idea and don't know how to handle it, or writers not understanding what the people want. Birdie Wing knows what they're doing, and they know what the people want.
They know what they want.
More references to killing people in golf.
Oh my god! Yes, because like within the first 5 minutes, we get the call back to Eve rewarding Aoi with a kiss.
Yeah.
Yes, and then the greatest line ever when Coach Amuro is like, to use your favorite term, he killed me in golf.
God.
My favorite term, which I used once.
Also, like let's
That's how you know. They know what people are saying out there.
Also,
they know
what
the people
we
want.
have to point out that, like, so Jel, the context you're giving there, right, is that, I mean, so hey, real quick synopsis for those of you who don't listen to this podcast regularly, don't understand why Birdie Wing is our favorite show. Birdie Wing is the golf girl anime. All right, that's it. That's all you need to know.
Yes.
So the whole point is, like, Amuro is meeting with Eve, right? Like after the round of the tournament, right? To explain that that Amuro also knows Char Aznable, or Leo, I think is his name in this show, right?
Whatever,
and
Char
reveal that Amuro and Char actually dueled once in golf years ago, and that Amuro was permanently maimed in this experience. And
also, don't forget that the flashback depicts them like on an island being drowned in a storm.
Golfing in a hurricane.
Yeah, it's so
and,
good.
The waves come up and consume
whirlpools.
Oh my god, it's so good.
And then I never held a golf club again.
And then, like, 2 minutes later, we proceed to see him holding a golf club.
It's
metaphorical.
Yes, of course.
Also, just the number of times people say "in the zone" this episode.
In the zone.
So
in the zone's most powerful ability, in the zone deep.
Yes.
In the zone, colon keep deep, right?
Man. So the plot of this opening episode is that they're going against their next opponents in the round. Another
this is
girls'
like the
school.
quarterfinals or something.
And they're going up against they're going up against the two girls with stands. Right, one is the zone, and the other is the line. And together they specialize at finding the most optimal path towards the hole. Right?
Without the zone, I'm just an ordinary golfer.
But using the zone puts mental strain on its user and thus cannot be overused. And in the zone deep is even more strenuous on the user. And it is risky to use.
I expected her to start bleeding from her eyeballs.
Yeah.
I was so sure she was going to start doing the anime bleeding thing.
Also, the girl has a grudge against Coach Amuro because he told her that she shouldn't rely on in the zone and should instead develop her skills without it to become a better golfer.
Yeah, look, if you can't overuse the Kaioken technique, it's too dangerous. But if you improve your base capabilities, then the Kaioken technique becomes more powerful.
Yeah. It's sort of
contrasted. She was like, "Fuck that," and I'll use my crazy cheap power as much as I
built different.
I do feel I am kind of glad that as we've gotten more into like quote unquote normal golf scenarios, they're adding more ridiculous powers.
Right,
so like
right,
we have the reference to we've only seen 5 of Eve's 7 bullets.
Yes. And we see the 6th.
We see the 6th one in this episode.
And true to form, it is just I hit the ball really hard.
Yes. But
are they implying that there is a spectrum of golf colors that anybody can access, and Eve just happens to have learned all of them? Because like
I have no fucking idea.
Because like in the zone, when they're using in the zone,
she can also use the orange power.
Eve's like, she has the orange power, and it's like
that's true.
Is it the fact that she can use one of the colors that makes her a powerful golfer, but Eve is like the best because she can use 7 colors?
I was telling Eero, is Eve literally Jotaro with Star Platinum? And is this a case of, Star Platinum can also operate in Zawarudo?
Yeah, in the zone,
Eve can perceive the zone.
I'm just wondering if it is going to be like JoJo, where everyone gets a stand now. Like everyone is going to have a color.
We'll see. There's a couple of other things worth pointing out as well. Firstly, there is the shot in the credits that confirms that like Eve's hang-ons are eventually going to confront each other in an arm wrestling match. Secondly, if I were a bookmaker, I'd be getting ready to pay out to you about now, Gel. Just saying. Given what we learned at the end of this episode,
the secret sisters, or
the secret
sisters.
Time to add a new tag to the time to add the incest tag to all the fanfics.
Oh well, I don't know.
Here's my like crazy pie in the sky thing that I was formulating over the past day.
Okay, so. Let me guess quickly. Female younger clone.
No.
Okay.
I think that's I think I'm in the clone camp.
Iro,
but you have something else, right?
Switched at birth type deal because Leo is Eve's true father. With Aoi's mother. Dropped something, sorry. Leo is like her true father with Aoi's mother or something, and the Aoi's father and the mysterious faceless woman in the mind zone are Aoi's true parents. They were sort of switched at birth, so you have the thing of like Eve is the one who's the genetic golf freak, and Aoi is the one who simply had the best training, the pure heart that loves golf, right?
So you think Shah Aznavour is Eve's natural father?
Well,
I think you're onto something though.
Okay,
because
I think Eera's onto something. I will say, just so we're all on the same page here. When Eve activates Orange Bullet, which causes
like,
mental strain,
this gives me a headache.
It reawakens her latent memories, and one of them is what appears to be Eve as a child with Aoi's father, right?
Yeah.
Amuro's brother,
right?
Kazuhiko,
the only man to ever defeat Leo Milfoden in golf.
Yes, exactly, right. So I mean,
wait, is he also Amuro's brother?
Yeah,
I did not realize that.
Yes, Amuro's brother took his wife's family name. Yes, I think they established that right. Because he was just a golf monster, but it was Aoi, nominally Aoi's mother, who was the like golf conglomerate. Heiress.
Yeah.
So there's definitely. I mean, whatever. We're all just like idly speculating about. I mean, this show.
Yeah.
Who knows,
this show
man?
doesn't care. This show doesn't care about our speculation. This show doesn't care about logic or reason. It's
I think I was onto something because
but yes.
Amuro does ask, why did Leo train you? And she doesn't know. Like, there has to be some reason. And if
that's why I also think it could still be possible that Eve is the child of Amuro's brother and an unknown woman, right? Because again, I'm just pointing out as an alternative.
Or Coach Amuro is Aoi's true father.
Right? Are we still doing something like
they did the whole? They did the thing where she when she falls over and he's like, oh, Aoi, and we get the whole thing where student council president's like, he used her first name.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, that's
he's
true,
he's
that's
very
true.
protective of Aoi. Yeah,
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
we have been saying Aoi's mother looks suspiciously like Eve.
Like
Yep.
Eve, yes, yes. So
Yeah.
is it like? So is the
Are you suggesting that both Aoi's mother and Aoi's father cheated on people? And
Yeah, why not?
That
Maybe.
would
I mean, I'm just saying-
be appropriately like
Yes.
Sopranos-esque for what they're doing.
I mean, very telenovela, right?
Yeah.
But the main reason I think that I think Eve being the child of Leo is definitely a real contender in the betting pool. I just want to also point out that Eve being the child of Amuro's brother would also lead Leo to saying, "Oh, so you're the kid, right? As in, you're the kid
Right,
of the
right.
man who defeated me, right?" So,
Yes. Could be
I can
he's
see it going either
training her to get his ultimate revenge or
Yes,
something. You're right.
Also, we're talking about all
yeah.
of this. We got to point out, Aoi didn't even get her kiss.
It's true.
You know,
It's true.
Like,
Don't give up,
Eve-
Aoi.
Eve promised. Eve promised Aoi, "You'll get a kiss if you make less mistakes than me." And Eve is almost gleefully like, "Ha, you made the same number of mistakes. No kiss for you."
Uh-huh.
Eve's due to get a lot of hamburgers, though. Apparently,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, and
Yeah,
we have
all
a
the
great
hamburger.
bit where, as Iro was alluding to, where Aoi is curled up in a ball after the golf match, and to all the Gundam heads in the room, she is curled up specifically in the same way Amuro was after suffering from intense PTSD after a battle.
Sure.
Like the same
Yep.
pose of like her knees up like that, arms around them, is like a dead-on recreation of that Amuro scene. And
I will
it's,
say the
again,
one thing this episode was missing was any obscure Gunpla appearances.
Yeah.
So-
not quite, but I
mean,
I will
soon.
say, you know, to what you mentioned earlier, Zig, I'm very happy they showed that the Nefrese kids are in the OP, because it would be a shame if they no longer showed up. Like I do miss their antics, so I hope
Okay, so
they gin up
here's
some
my
excuse.
theory.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Birdie Wing is taking place on Earth, while Witch from Mercury is
Uh-huh.
taking place in space.
Wow. Mhm.
And the reason everybody hates Earthians so much is that it's a society that's become obsessed by golf.
So,
And
like-
so like people who were bad at golf fled into space to be
Yeah.
good at
To
robots
cope.
instead.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I assume, obviously, this show doesn't give a fuck at all. Using the flag as a net, I assume that's hella illegal.
Yes, absolutely.
That's insanely illegal. Like that's like some mini golf shit. Like that
Also,
is.
it's not how physics work. So
Yeah, well, it's the orange bullet. You know it.
Yeah.
Just
Who can
yeah.
say what the physical properties of the orange bullet are?
Yeah. As far as we can tell, it's just Eve hit ball hard. But yeah.
But yes, but yes, like the follow up to what I was saying earlier is like, if all that bullshit prediction I said earlier is the case, then like, because they've sort of had a thing where Aoi is like, you know, the talented one, but she is not as good, not quite as good as Eve. Broadly, you know,
She doesn't have super. She doesn't have any color
weakened,
bullets,
you know.
Right? Yeah.
And also, we built this thing up with these two that they're facing of like, one of them is holding the other back. All right.
Right, that's sort of the through line of this week's episode, right? Both teams have a quote unquote weak link in their duo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if by the end of the show, you know, Aoi can finally defeat Eve in golf or something.
I mean, you
right?
know, this is why Aoi uses the 48-incher, right?
Uh-huh.
It couldn't even be called a golf club, more like a slab of iron. The 48-incher golf driver.
Before we finish up, don't forget the bit where Eve is trying to line up the shot and it shows her holding a literal sniper rifle.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
And
So
like
cool.
it has the golf flag but in a sniper rifle sight.
I need the show to do is it will do that whole bit with like the scope and stuff, but then like you zoom out and someone else on the course is holding a real gun to shoot somebody, right?
I mean, yes, we've been saying this from the beginning, right? At some point, somebody needs to deflect a bullet with a golf ball.
So that too, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I'm glad
so
this
glad
show.
the show's back.
Yeah, I'm glad the show's back. I'm glad it's still just intensely silly.
Yes.
So good.
Yeah.
Welcome
All
back,
right.
Birdie
In the
Wing.
zone.
Yes, welcome back, Birdie Wing. Now that we've got our anime of the year locked in place, I'm looking forward to whatever ridiculous speculation we will have in the coming weeks.
Oh, yes.
And I'm gonna guess it's whatever we're guessing is going to be wrong, and it's going to be great.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's go to a new show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And let's talk about Heavenly Delusion.
Yes.
And
Interesting.
yeah, so
I'll let you guys start on this one.
Yeah, so G, according to the preview show, this is another one of your manga you were not expecting to get a adaptation, right? But
that and not one that looks this fucking good. Holy shit!
Yeah, it's real. It's
really
real
nice.
good, nice looking.
That's that Disney money, baby.
Yeah. And I did look it up. Oh,
you're probably gonna say the same thing, G, but go ahead. Yeah.
Probably not actually. I was gonna say. So I did look it up. At least I think that they got out on Twitter and they confirmed some of Heavenly Delusion's backgrounds are traditional watercolor background, like
Wow.
that they then like digitally process like afterward.
Impressive.
Yeah. So I mean, in that regard, it's really surprising in 2023. Not since the likes of Little Witch Academia have we gotten some old school hand painted backgrounds.
Yeah. So from coming in, as myself coming in as knowing absolutely nothing about this.
All right. Same here.
It's an interesting combination of like what feels like two different types of post-apocalyptic things, which I'm sure are going to be related in some way, but currently aren't yet. But you've kind of got the creepy utopian school thing going on,
right?
Versus the more traditional post-apocalyptic survival road trip story going on. And I'll admit it took me a little while to like kind of figure out, and in some ways I'm still kind of trying to understand like what's particularly unique about this. Like, it's very well done, but like, and in some ways maybe that combination is something that's a bit unique. But as far as them like, the post-apocalyptic road trip thing, I feel like that's something we've seen a lot of. But it is very well done though, and I think that I like the I like the characters, which I think is very important. They have an interesting relationship. And yeah, I think the other thing is maybe watch the first 2 episodes, because by the end of episode 2, that's where I think I was starting to get the answer to my question. But
this is necessary. Like, this is one of those where I'd almost go as far as say Heavenly Delusion probably should have been a 2-parter.
Should have been a double. Yeah. Because I don't think you should. I wouldn't have condensed down anything to like fit all that in one episode. So
it's already condensing a lot.
Yeah,
you told me that like
fine, but like in terms of like getting to a point where like, okay, there's some things going on here. But Ira, what did you think?
I am very intrigued. I'm curious where they're going. I think I think it's very well made, and it's one of those shows that's like bringing up a lot of questions and sort of stringing you along with those questions, right?
Yeah, as I sort of said in my first look post, like Heavenly Delusion is definitely the type of work that is hoping that the strength of its mystery is enough to paper over any like more like pressing exposition questions you would like to have answered, right? Like, it's not a show or a story that's particularly interested in, at least right now, immediately saying, this is what's going on, this is who these people are, etc., right? It's sort of taking a bit of glee in stringing you along with the mystery.
Yeah, and I like the pace of that, of what how they've been revealing information so far. I think that's been good.
Yeah,
I also appreciate it's not like too serious. There's some there's still some joy left in the world, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, like, I mean, that's sort of what makes it work, right? Is that Maru and Kiriko have a very good dynamic, right? Like,
Yeah, there's some like genuinely funny kind of goofy bits, but not enough to like
Right.
take you out
It's
of.
funny when, because like the show is like really lavish character animation a lot of the time. So of course, like the one time where they're rafting across the water, and he's like, "Are there any sharks or alligators here?" And even though the show is so well animated most of the time, it does the like shitty low frame rate crossfade
yes.
with her face.
Yes.
She's like, when they're like, "Oh shit!" Right? Dangerous edibles.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's a show that understands that sometimes less frames is better.
Yeah. But no, I think I always appreciate when something that could be like a really like melodramatic sort of dour type of story, finds humanity in it, right? Like that makes it so much more compelling. That I think that's the kind of thing that makes me more invested in wanting to know what these mysteries are. Whereas in other shows I would just be like, I don't care. Like, okay, there's some weird kids and some horny kids in some school somewhere. I don't know, but
yeah, those kids are, they're
learning new things.
They're learning new things pretty quickly in that second episode, huh?
Yeah. So, it's just that kind of execution is really appreciated for something that we've seen many other shows try these things and fail at doing them while keeping your interest. Combined with it just looking amazing just all the time. But yeah. I did want to mention, Zig, you said the Disney money.
Yes, I did.
I realized, so this is globally available on Disney Plus, but not in America.
Oh. Wait, what?
Interesting.
Shit, we've been caught red-handed.
It is only available on Hulu in America.
In other English-speaking countries.
Under the Japanese title.
It's really funny.
Yeah.
Oh, Tengoku Daimakyo.
Yes, you have to look for that and not Heavenly Delusion.
Oh, that's really funny.
Right.
Is that just America or all English?
Just America.
I gotta update the first look post, I guess.
That's funny. I was like, there's some stuff in here that Disney folks would probably not be happy with.
There's
weed.
Probably
there's weed. It's an anime that just has weed in it.
They are straight up growing weed in episode 2. Yeah,
that is true. No, I think it's probably just a licensing rights thing.
It's always a licensing thing.
I mean, Disney Plus's anime tends to be on Hulu, like relegated to Hulu.
Also, like I feel like there's probably some elements of, is this another Kingdom Hearts situation of Disney is not paying particularly close attention to what Disney Japan is doing? Because like Disney Plus also got Bleach, right? So it's like there's an element of like, does the head know what the limbs are doing? Situation.
I will say that Disney's reality distortion field is not quite as strong outside of the States as it is in the States, if that makes sense. Don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of propaganda, but it's not quite as overwhelming as it is.
And again, as we sort of said, right, like this is not a Netflix original in scare quote situation, right? Disney is simply licensing the show. They are not involved in the production of Heavenly Delusion in any way whatsoever, at least as far as I know.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't want to say to their credit, but they're not dumping the whole thing on us, right? It is actually getting
that
released.
Is also the other thing. I am so thankful this is weekly.
Yeah, on the flip side, even I don't have Hulu anymore, so I don't know if people are people are actually going to watch this. But if you're listening to this, I highly recommend watching it by whatever means you would find suitable to watch it. Because it's a really intriguing first couple episodes.
Yes, there's the whole It did take me a bit to realize. I know you said it in like the preview, and I was like trying to keep an eye out for it, and it didn't really connect with me until until Maru was literally talking about it. They're like, oh, right, Tokyo is supposed to be the kid who looks the same as Maru. Because the art style is just art. The art style is just art style, and like their hair is different.
Right. I will say this is one aspect where I think the manga did it a little bit better because being black and white, you couldn't tell that their hair is different colors.
Right.
And
you could you can do like a match cut or something.
And so I think the manga actually does quite literally do something of like it centers on Maru's face it centers on Tokyo's face and then hard cuts to Maru.
Right. And I didn't quite get that from the first two episodes.
Yeah. I think that's an aspect where maybe the anime did not do as clear of a job of establishing that.
Oh yeah. I don't even know. I don't even know what to say. Although it's just like
it's definitely a show I think you have to watch to really. It's kind of hard. It's one of the harder ones I think to explain, both in not wanting to give things away and also just like a lot of it is just the mood and atmosphere and how they reveal things that you just don't get from dudes on a podcast trying to describe it. So you should probably just go check it out yourselves, folks.
Wow, definitely. I think it is definitely, assuming they can keep it up and assuming they can do well with the source material. I think if nothing else, Heavenly Delusion will be one to keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah.
As the manga reader, has there been any like so far any like big pain points of oh no, they're screwing this up, or
not necessarily screwing up, but more as we sort of alluded to a little bit earlier, the pacing is. I mean, I'm glad that you guys didn't seem to feel this, but they are making judicious cuts to. So I think you can even go back to the original to the previous podcast where I said, and Twitter discourse for this show is going to be miserable around episode 3 or 4. And the moment
so you're talking about the reveal at the end of episode 2.
Yes, that's what I was talking about.
Okay.
A little quicker than I would have expected, to be honest. So, and I did a quick reread of the early chapters of the manga, and my understanding is where they're mainly cutting is like they're cutting out a lot of the like less relevant texture of the facility half of the story. Like like the facility half they're still like showing the main narrative points of it, communicating that okay, regardless of what's these kids deal, you can understand that there's something going on with these kids, right? They are unusually physically resilient and agile and maybe have psychic powers to a certain extent, right? Like, but they are cutting out a lot of the like more day-to-day like exploration of like what life is like in the facility, right? Like,
right, which is a shame, obviously, because it means you lose some texture. But at the same time, I think it's important to suit the story to the medium, and honestly I think I'd be more worried if you were like, oh no, they've cut nothing out at all, every single panel is in there.
I will say, like, I think I'll bring it up next time because I don't want to quite give it away now, but there is a thing that Maru notices about Kiriko in one of the earlier chapters that the anime did not mention that would serve as good foreshadowing for something I think Kiriko will tell us in either the next episode or the episode after. But so again, it's not necessarily that like big like plot elements are being removed, but it's more like the transition, the in-betweens sort of are sort of being plucked out, which is maybe making some of the transitions a little bit more abrupt. But since you guys don't seem to be really noticing it, I think it's within the realms of tolerance. So
yeah, I mean, from what I've seen so far, I've had no issue with like the pacing or feeling like anything's been left out. I guess if you were to ask me to care more about what's going on at the school than I currently do, that might be an issue if they're cutting stuff.
so maybe it's stuff like that, right? Or it's like,
but it seems like at this point in the story that's not as important, maybe, but maybe that will come back to bite us later. I don't know.
Right, so that's like one of those things of like right now these cuts are fine. it's a thing of like, well, eventually the facility section will take up a pretty major portion of the plot line, and I guess it's like, well, when we get to that bridge, will we have enough gas left in the tank to cross it, right? And I guess we'll see how that plays out. Yeah.
All right, so go check that out. And
there's some interesting stuff going on.
Damn, that OP is cool. What the hell?
Yeah, that's a pretty good OP. I was just thinking, I feel like it's been a while since we've had like a real like banger OP or ED. Maybe that's just me. I'm trying to think of like the last like really good one, but that one is pretty good though.
At risk of invoking the name, that one Chainsaw Man ED for the like hotel episode was really good.
I liked the Chainsaw Man OP as well. I think that went pretty hard.
That was all right. It's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
I will say that I'm very fond of the new Witch from Mercury.
Yes,
ED.
that's what I was about to say.
Yeah,
the OP sucks.
It is. I gotta say, by Gundam standards, the second OP is not. It ain't hitting like Yoasabi does.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
it's just like fine. Right.
Yes. So hot off the presses. You guys were watching this literally as you were joining the podcast.
This recording started slightly late because I was watching the episode.
Mobile Suit Gundam: The Witch from Mercury has also returned. We got our first episode back, and I would say, for all those folks thinking that we were done with the school stuff,
we were all wrong.
I did not think we were done with the school stuff.
Right.
I'm disappointed to be right.
Well,
that way.
I didn't think we were done with the school stuff per se, but man, what a hard cut back into it.
This is it's definitely.
We literally like the last thing we saw was literally the whole thing with Suletta squashing that dude and that whole and her covered in blood and everything, and there's like no transition.
They do the thing which we worried about, which is they kind of gloss over it a bit. They address it a little bit at the end of the episode, but even then, it's mostly to just kind of like brush it aside.
Hey, remember when Ichiro Kochi wrote the first episode of Code Geass R2, which completely ignored the massive cliffhanger of Code Geass season 1?
Okay, but that at least had the bonus of what the fuck is going on here?
I know.
So in this situation, I mean, to their credit, they do. I think they give you the little burst of the duels and what's going on at school as a like, hey, we're back in the saddle.
I love the Jobber Squad in the first 5 minutes of this episode.
Yeah, all these like, weird ass looking.
Like, every mech looks more expendable than the previous one.
So once they get us back in the saddle in those first few minutes, they do acknowledge that like there's. Things are not, even though they look the same, things are not the same, right? They are not the same,
yes. So this is where my optimistic hope is that my optimistic hope with this episode is that we are doing a little bit of a status quo reset to sort of get people back into the groove of G-Witch.
And I will say that they open up several intriguing new plot lines here, which is a good sign.
And that is the thing, right? Like, the reason why I'm not willing to, like... I'm not super disappointed in the status quo reset is because it is not quite a reset, right? Like, we are shown through multiple perspectives, right? That things have permanently changed about the Benerit group, about the school, like, you know... Poor Jaturk Industries is in shambles. You know, their Scion and their CEO are dead or missing. Lauda's taking over, and clearly the other corporations see this as open season, right?
Blood in the water, right?
We get that great board meeting where they're like, huh, how come your suits showed up at that false flag operation? And it's
we're looking into it. We're looking into
and it's like... Yeah, and it's like, you know, Shadiq this whole time is just like, you know, being this smug piece of shit, be like, yeah, that's right, I bought your suits to fund a false flag operation.
I didn't actually recognize him. I didn't actually recognize him with his hair
up. The hair done up, yeah. And, you know, and I do like that clearly the characters in universe understand that like the returning to the school is at best a pretense, right? It is a pretense of normalcy because like at this point, like real Elan is just out there, right? Like we are no like he is not like trying to pretend to be old Elan, right? He is just, frivolous playboy
Well, he
Elan.
is, but like he's not attempting to imitate him, if that
Right.
makes sense.
We have that interesting bit with Shadiq where Shadiq's father knows about the false flag, but Shadiq is clearly not forthcoming about the full extent of the false flag.
Yeah,
right?
there's some decent I know
right.
stuff going on there.
I do like, that in this is the thing where I was talking about with Eero. I think this episode proves that like G-Witch is an insanely economic show. Like it makes good with very little, right? Like some characters have like less than 30 seconds of screen time in this episode, and we still get like a great amount of insight into their thoughts and feelings about the current situation.
I think the trade-off of that is that like for like quite a lot of the background characters, we're falling into the whole you can't just have your characters say how you feel, that makes me feel angry thing.
Yes. I totally agree, Zig. And again, I think I can't believe I'm saying this about a modern.
If you only have 30 seconds for a scene with this character, then you have them say how they feel, right?
Right, because it's like, yes, I would love the version of this story that had like a full episode to devote to the Earth kids trying
having
to
PTSD.
Yes, like deal with like the things they have seen.
I mean,
and the reality
they
is,
do at least give Nika plenty of screen time, which is the important choice.
Right.
There,
so like kind of the big plot thing that happens, right, is that the witches from Earth have showed up at Astakasia,
the new
right?
transfer students. Hi, everybody.
They go from naught to murder real fast here.
I am so glad because like me and Eero were sort of discussing like, okay, is this a long-term plot line or a short-term one, right? Like, are we going to deal with these two infiltrators, like two Earth House infiltrators for like the next 7 episodes? Or are they here to like stick around long enough to commit a terrorist act and then bail? And
right.
So there's two things regarding them I want to talk. One is I think like the fact that they don't fuck around is really good. I will say that the bit where they try and kill Nika and Suletta comes in and fucking power slides to save her is incredibly badass. It's so badass that I was like, wait, this is completely out of character.
Right.
Look, man,
Suletta has filled with a brand new confidence after reducing a man to chunky salsa.
Yes. Yeah, they have been kind of foreshadowing her newfound attempt to be the leader, right?
The other thing is, I think the ending of this episode fucking sucks.
Oh, where they're like, oh, well, yeah, we will duel
instead of murdering you, we will have a fun duel. Right?
Yeah,
and this might be me giving the show too much credit with what I'm about to say, but I think establishing that one of them was totally willing to just step on Suletta in the hangar means that they can. It's sort of is holding a lighter up to a fuse, right? It's like, oh, actually, I'm willing to flout the rule at any time. Right.
I just kind of feel like that they went too far.
Right.
Like there are zero reasons not to murder her.
Right. My hope is that they do the pretenses of the duel just long enough for them to start losing, and then they can just go, well, I didn't give a shit about this anyway. Time to start blasting and just, and permanently wreck the school setting, right?
I think you're right. That should happen, and I think that will happen. My major concern, my major concern is just like there was a more elegant way to get there.
There probably is, right? Yeah. Like this,
it's the fucking anime thing always of like. If I win this thing, you have to do what I say, and everybody is always just like, haha, interesting. I guess I will do that, and then do what you say when you win, instead of just like, how about I pull the fucking trigger instead, dumbass?
Yeah. Look, I think to Zig's point, it feels like that's not appropriate for this show. But
Yeah,
Right.
like honestly, I was kind of hoping that they were just gonna murder Nika, not because she's a bad character, I like it, but because it
Of
would
the
have been
stakes,
something
right?
extremely unexpected and like it would have been like,
Right.
oh, these fuckers are not fucking around,
Mhm.
right? Like,
I mean, I guess it is a testament to what they have done with the Earth Witches that, you know, we talk about selling and booking when it comes to like convincing, you know, the audience that a character will actually make good on their like stated fictional intentions.
Right.
When Norea has that knife up to Nika's stomach, there was actually a
that is a good
second there
scene. Yeah.
where I was like, oh, she might actually go through with it. You know?
Yeah.
Like
And
there's
to be fair, I think the Earth Witches are one of my least favorite character archetypes, which are like, oh, you know, they're funny, happy, goofy
they're the
girls who are
they're the
also
cyber new types.
yeah,
You
who
know?
are also, like they're not even like
Crazy.
it's like a bit more flat than that because you know that character archetype has become a bit more of a cliche in the years
Mhm.
since cyber new types were a major thing. But I do like I thought that they were working right up until the end of this episode because I was like, oh, like they're working because they're actually doing the ill shit that they
Right.
tend to, and that's why I felt you know the ending was such a huge letdown.
Yeah,
on that
Right.
regard.
I think again, this is sort of one of those cases where I praise G-Witch for being an economic show, but I think sometimes it cuts those corners too close to get to its desired destination. And I think the ending of this episode is definitely a case of like, well, we need Suletta to have a reason to fight the witches from Earth. And this is sort of the best we could come up with in the school setting. And I think it's
Mhm.
definitely a case of like, were this a 52 episode series, they probably would have found a much more graceful way to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess the thing I will say is, I totally get what you're saying about the whole, it makes me feel bad thing, right? But I guess I continue to appreciate how well they are trying to balance the like at this point like daunting number of separate interests that exist in this story. Like,
Yeah,
I do.
the structuring of the show remains very strong.
Yes. I feel like a lesser show would have already collapsed under the weight of the number of plot threads that have been dangling. And that's hey, never say never. Look, it's still
Yeah, well,
Gundam.
yes.
Oh yeah.
It's still
I
a
do
show
agree.
dangling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do think that
But-
we could have used maybe just an extra few minutes in this episode so they could show them, I don't know, like making an enormous pizza or something like that.
Sure, yeah.
So,
I mean, I like this. I mean, for a great example of this, right, is to speak to both our points. I wish that montage with the Earth Witches integrating into the school was like a full like 8-minute B plot, right?
or even an episode like that could be
Sure.
a whole episode.
Because then Eero actually had a
Mhm.
great suggestion of what if you combined the montage of Suletta defeating the Jobber Squad with the Earth Witches integrating into the school, right? Because then you could have a great bit of like, well, they're watching Suletta fight these like, posh, school dipshits, right? And you could totally have the plot line of them being like, she's not fighting for real. Like, I've seen her fight for her life. And like what she's doing in this school is like a mockery, right, of like who she really is, right? Stuff like that. Like there's
That montage does again confirm that like funnels are the most overpowered.
Oh,
thing
yeah,
you could
yeah.
possibly
I mean,
have in
like-
Gundam,
Yeah, like-
I mean, again, I love every jobber that showed up in this episode.
one of them
Like,
has has 4 arms and 4 beam sabers, which is normally a surefire bet for like
Yeah.
actually powerful suits.
And then
and then
cuts
it
their
cuts
own.
its own
Yeah, they cut
antenna.
cuts its own antenna
Yeah.
off, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I think
what a-
I think the speed at which like they zoomed through and getting these characters into the school setting is like, to me, again and again, I'm getting my hopes up. Maybe is like that to me is a way to have it happen, and then we can wrap that up quick by having
Sure.
them blow things
Yeah.
up or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I would hope so as well. I think it's just a thing of like I think we have all enjoyed our time with G-Witch to some extent. I think it's just that this is not one of those shows where we can place, this is not like an Akadama Drive or something where we can just place our full, complete, like unquantitative trust in it. Like Like, I feel like if we get to the end of G-Witch and we're still positive, like, that will be a miracle, right? Like,
Yeah,
I mean, but by their very nature, Gundam shows. No, go on, G. Go on.
We'll be nervous every step of the way there.
Yeah. And I mean, like, by their nature, Gundam shows, which are shows that tend to want to try and say something about, many things, tend to be quite complicated and multi-layered shows, right? Like, you set off a lot of rockets and hope that some of them hit the target.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess if we just want to wrap up here, the last two things I want to bring up. So, like, Delling is, like, growing a mobile armor in that hole, right? Like, we're gonna get a big Zam in that hole, right?
It certainly seems like some sort of, like, forbidden weapon thing, right? It's a Gundam show. What else could it be but some sort of like, terrible prototype suit or mobile armor or something like that?
I mean, I think that it's probably... All right. It's probably the thing that caused them to seal away Gundam 20 years ago or whatever.
Right, it's like a psycho frame or something.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe they'll end up plugging Delling into it or something. I don't know.
What are the odds that it's something which is going to attempt human instrumentality?
I mean, at this point, y'all talking about, like, is Delling going to pilot it? I feel like we all need to be asking, is Prospera going to be piloted?
That's where I was going. Yeah,
I feel like now that Delling is out of the picture, I feel like Prospera is kind of now one of the most prominent potential villains in this show.
I would give Eve... I mean, like, I think we've said for a while that she's probably, like, the main bad guy, right? Like, I would put even odds on the fact that Delling never wakes up. That he is killed
just out of the
collateral action or whatever.
I mean, or like the happy ending is that like Delling embracing Gundam to be able to walk again is the push that they need to is the push they need to like finally legitimize its use for medical purposes instead of as weapons of war, etc., etc.
The point is, I don't think he will be a particularly major presence in this second half because like that the whole corporate plot is way more interesting when he's not a factor rather than when he is a factor.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing I'm going to point out, Guel looks so sad in the OP. What's going on, buddy?
What's going on? He did kill his own father. That kind of gets to you.
No, that's a rhetorical question. What's wrong, buddy? Why the lone face?
We'll see Bob again, I'm sure.
I can't believe
I think the big question
this dipshit is the character I'm like the most invested in finding out what he's been up to.
I mean, like, I feel like the Bob plot at this point is like there's only two ways he can go. Is that like he comes back to redeem himself and becomes like an avenging angel for the heroes, or he goes full sicko and becomes like the chief, like Mook.
I think he's going to join the Earthians at some point.
Yeah, he's going to become. Fuck, what's that name of that dude in Code Geass? Orange.
Oh yeah,
Jeremiah.
Jeremiah. Yeah.
that could happen too.
Man, like I don't know, the strength of will required to become a living meme overnight is.
I think Bob's got it in him, but yeah.
Does he have enough 100% fresh squeezed loyalty?
Oh my goodness.
Well, one thing I will just add, I think we've confirmed Suletta's not brainwashed. We can throw those theories out, right?
I mean, those were always like half joking at most, right?
I mean, I never contended she was brainwashed. Like,
I don't think we did, but that was a big theory going around.
I think at most
she's conditioned in some form.
She's conditioned, as children often are, right? I mean, there's a great bit in the episode where she literally spells it out to the audience. Well, if mom says it's okay, then I'm probably fine, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, that is the talk of a kid who has been hard conditioned by her parent, right?
It's very funny also.
But that's different than
okay to paste that man with my mobile suit. She's like, no, it was totally fine, honey, that you crushed him into paste with your mobile suit.
Well,
I think I could have done it I think I could have done it differently. No, it was very important and good that you crushed the man with the hand of your mobile suit.
You're right, Eero, but Elnora does have what, like in classic like parental style, has one throw line where she's like, I do think you went maybe a little far, but I think...
And crushing
well, she doesn't say that to her. She says that to Mirin, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. yes. Oh, yes, that's the Muri. It's the classic deflection, right? Of
in her negotiations.
I don't. As I said, I don't think anybody here ever thought that she was like a Manchurian candidate. Who was
we
going to be
didn't. We
activated
didn't, but that was a very popular theory on the
Yeah.
internet.
Right.
But there was no like, we said the activation word, and now she can't remember what she did or anything like that. Thank
Right.
God, because
No, she
I
knows
don't-
exactly
knows.
what she did.
And
Yeah.
I'm very curious because also prominently Miorine and Soletta have not spoken since those events. Seems to be the implication, right?
Yeah.
Like
Right. I mean,
I'm-
seems like the implication is everybody involved has been like detained and
Hush order, yeah.
But we know they still love each other because
that's
Soletta's
what the
taking
ED
care of.
says.
Well, we'll get that's a whole other level. But in the episode, Soletta's still taking care of the tomatoes, and
Mhm.
Miorine is longingly.
She says she's
longingly
winning
looking
the
at her,
jewels for Miorine as well. Like she says,
Yeah.
I promised Miorine I'd win these jewels.
And she's always emailing her and everything, and Miorine is longingly looking at her little
Stupid
charm
stuff boy, yeah.
thing
Eskimo
that she
plushie.
has. Yes, so we know they still love each other despite it all. And then of course there is the ED, which again, just watch it and explains itself. But
I mean,
Yeah.
I feel
look,
like that
they
ED
even
is
do
like-
they even do the revolutionary girl Utena plunge your hand into the other character's chest thing.
Yep.
Like they're not
Yep.
even hiding it.
Yep. So and the internet can freak out about Soletta having her hair down, and but
I know writers who use subtext and they're all cowards.
that's great.
Quote by
All right.
Ichiro Okochi.
Well, there are a lot of other new shows, obviously, but we're going to save those for next time. There's still a lot of them coming out today, and so again, we're stuck in between things. So we're going to end it for there, but next time I think we'll have a lot of more other new things, assuming I know there's a couple shows I want to talk about, but we'll see, I guess, if anything else good comes out. I'm still waiting on the one that you guys said is designed for me or whatever, the Insomniac one or whatever that was called.
Right.
But that has not come out as of recording. I think that comes out tomorrow. But so plenty more first looks on the way. And of course, I mean, this leads into our housekeeping. You can go to theglorioblog.com and read about all of our first looks, including a lot of the bad shows that we have not talked about. I've
Cool
watched
boy.
some.
Maybe next
Some-
time I'll talk about Maho Shoujo Magical Destroyers.
Do we have to?
Was that even I don't even remember that. And I made the schedule.
I mean, you gave it to me because it has Maho Shoujo in the title.
Yeah. So, you can look at what we've got up there. There's some good and some bad. Some of the good ones we'll talk about. So check that out at theglorioblog.com. And other housekeeping, you can follow us on Twitter at theglorioblog, on co-host at Glorio. You can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, Stitcher, and you can follow us on YouTube, where you can like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell, all those good things. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, and we'll catch everybody next time.
Birdie, birdie.